So here we go. Hello, Latinos in Clinical Research. Welcome to our March webinar / Zoom. It's not really a webinar, more of a Zoom. Webinars are so outdated. It's all about Zooms now. It's all about face-to-face. You know, this is what it's all about. This is 2021, guys. We have Topaz Clinical Research and Dr. Gutierrez, the principal investigator from Topaz Clinical Research. We're going to talk to her because it's not that often we get a PI's experience. You know, they're based out of a suburb in Orlando. I'm going to mispronounce the name. Why don't you, Marjorie, pronounce the city that you guys are in?
We are in Apopka, Florida, which is north of Orlando.
That's not that hard. That's not that hard to say. Okay, Apopka, Florida, north of Orlando.
Ahora te llamo.
Yes, so basically, this is a really good site. Marjorie, why don't you give like a background as to your site, how long you've been around, how you met Dr. Gutierrez, what kind of patients you treat, and then we want to get into all kinds of stuff like retention. I think you guys are really good at retention from our discussions. So why don't you take it away, Marjorie?
Okay, well, I actually established Topaz Clinical Research in 2016 and pretty much sat on it for about 2 years until Carla came along. I was waiting on my grandbaby to be born. So
congratulations.
Yes. So March, I believe it was March 2018 is when we actually said, okay, we're going to get going. And we got our first study, which was an Alzheimer's study. So we do clinical research from Alzheimer's. I mean, we do geriatrics to pediatrics. And this is where Dr. Gutierrez comes in because she is our pediatric principal investigator. And so, I mean, this is something that we wanted to do. We wanted to be multidisciplinary. We wanted to bring, we also multicultural, diverse. This is what we wanted to bring to this area of Orange County. We noticed that most of the research sites were located in Orlando. And that's all you ever heard was Orlando. Central Florida was considered Orlando. And so when I moved up here, I came up from Miami. In 2016, I noticed that there was this whole area here that there is nothing happening here. And we are actually connected to 3 different counties. We have, I think Volusia is pretty close. We have Seminole County and we have Orange County. Yeah, and we have all these towns around us and there was no clinical research. Not only was there no clinical research happening in this area, but there was no Hispanics in this area. There was nothing bilingual happening. All of the Central Florida sites at that moment were doing all of their studies in English. Recently, we've noticed that there are more people moving up here, opening up research sites and saying they are bilingual, which is good because there's more than enough for everybody. But, so hold on, I'm trying to see where are we here.
You guys are great. I mean, you're right in the front and center. So.
But anyway, so that's who we are. So we are here in Apopka, and Dr. Gutierrez joined us, I believe, soon after.
Pretty much in the beginning.
And from the beginning. And
how did you
meet
her?
That's what we're going to ask her.
How did you meet such a great PI? Like, what did you guys do? What's the magic? How did you meet her?
Well, that was the questions that we were going to do. See, I got them ready. So we were going to ask, because to tell you the truth, I sat there talking to her the other day and I was like, when did we meet Dr. Gutierrez? I really can't remember because, it feels like we've known each other a long time. And so those were the types of questions I was going to ask her. And I know that we've kind of had those types of questions that we mentioned in the past.
So when that happens, that means that you hit it off like right away. When that happens where you can't remember where you met, from my experiences, that's what that usually means.
Yes. I think that that's what happened, and we just love having her here. We're expanding to a pediatric office, so we are opening up a pediatric office, and Dr. Gutierrez is going to be our doctor for the pediatric office. We're gonna do, our business is going to be a little bit different. So it's not that you're going to see your patients in 10 minutes. However time she needs to be with her patients, that's how we're going to establish our timelines with patients. So we want to do things a little bit different. And this is something hopefully we'll continue to grow together. So,
all right, good. So what was the first study you guys got as we welcome Nancy Lockhart to the Zoom? What's the first study you got? How difficult was it to get? What's the challenges with the PI? I'm assuming Dr. Gutierrez, was this your first experience with research with Topaz?
Yes. Yes. So this was back in 2017, I think.
Yeah, I think it might have been like
Yeah, around that
17,
time.
18. Yeah.
Yeah.
2017. I was just I graduated 2010 from pediatrics. I've been working mostly in the outpatient clinical setting, so doing newborns to 18 years old, but mostly the office setting. At that time, I was struggling with career and family, and struggling with the timelines and the time restraints, seeing patients, trying to give good medical care, but also completing a medical record, finishing all my paperwork on time. My daughters were sometimes over 10 hours in daycare. So I was trying to see what was out there for a physician where I can use my clinical experience and not being subjected to these long hours, and can be a balance between being a mom, which I love, and being a pediatrician. And that's when I Google it. I Google non-clinical physician jobs, and it was a diabetic study, so that immediately catch my attention because it was diabetes in children. It was a novel medication, and I wanted to see what was that about. I remember that I scrolling down to see, oh, probably the requirements are going to be, I have to have a master in clinical research. I'm going to have X, some years of clinical experience, clinical research experience. But then it was all, physician with a license, board certified. So I applied, and Marjorie contacted me.
Yeah, because we were, that was a question that I know that we've always talked about. So how do we reach that naive?
Where did you
position,
post?
right?
Yes.
Where
So
did you
we
post
posted, was
On
it
Indeed.
Indeed? I think we posted on Indeed. And I don't even think that we said we'll train or we'll do anything like that. It was just basics. This is what we need.
Yes.
And like she said, she was at that period of her life. So one of the questions that we had was when she saw that ad,
Yes.
besides just that, what attracted you to want to do clinical research? Why did you respond to a clinical research?
So I haven't heard or experienced in clinical research. It's something that we always wonder, how this works, how it happens. You think about you have to be writing a lot of stuff, or maybe just writing papers or reading a lot of papers. And I always wonder how everything works. So when that popped out, to tell you the truth, that's the first time that I even thought I would consider doing clinical research. And then that's when I started looking for information. And then when Marjorie contacted me, I immediately say, I have no experience. I would love to know more about this. And then she gladly said, no problem. I can teach you everything I know.
Oh, okay, good. And I'm getting
Wow.
questions. Can you talk? Yes, if you have something, just talk. You can unmute yourself and talk. I think Mari Mayorga.
Yeah.
We want to get to the questions. And also, if you want to chat, we'll read the questions. Maybe me or Monica or somebody will read the questions for the ones that don't want to talk. But the ones that want to talk, of course, let's hear from you guys.
Hi, Dan and Monica. How are you?
Hi.
Doing great.
Wonderful to see you. It's very impressive about Dr. Gutierrez talk about, the amazing opportunity. And in the same both heard. And for me, it's very hard to get into clinical research. You are very lucky and blessed. So where are you from?
From Puerto Rico.
Okay. It's amazing because, you know what? I always trying to get into clinical research, as Dan and Monica knows me, and it's very hard. I don't know, it's because I'm in Cleveland and the space is so small, but I always posting, following people, doing that, doing here, but it's so difficult. And, it depends that I don't have experience. It's very hard to get in. I send my CV everywhere, and I'm still waiting.
Yeah, and that's what my perception was as well. So that's why if he hadn't popped up, probably I wouldn't even be here right now, because I didn't know. I thought I had to study for doing this, or I had to have the experience to doing this. And luckily for me, it happened this way.
Did you have any fears when you first started. Yeah.
So that was the first
Of
barrier,
course.
or my first fear, not knowing, I didn't know what my responsibilities were going to be, if I was going to be able to
Of
do it.
course.
But I remember the first time we sat together, I came here and I was very scared because I knew the question was going to come, how much do you know, what you can do about clinical research. And then we just sat in a circle. We started talking, getting to know each other, very informal, very nice. And then Marjorie and Carla were really upfront to me, and they told me, okay, this is my background. I have all this experience in clinical research. I've been working here. I've been working with that. I can help you. If you want to continue to grow in this field, I can definitely help you. And when I heard that they actually had the experience that I was lacking, for me, it was reassuring.
Very blessed. I would say blessed, not lucky.
I'm very blessed. That's true. And the other thing is that also the support, because she, from the start, they always told me, okay, so I'm going to be the administrative, the clerical. That's the thing that I didn't know about, that I was so afraid about that, because I didn't know anything about that. So they told me, no, these responsibilities, I'm going to be doing this, Carla's going to be doing that, your monitor is going to be doing this, all this background that goes on that I don't know about. What you have to do, she told me, you need to know about this, you need to do this training, you need to know these codes, you need to know your protocol, you need to know your responsibilities and that's what you're concentrating. And when I knew that I'm going to have all this support and I can be concentrating in what I know I can do, that is the clinical part, that's the reason that I said, okay, definitely I can do this. And so far, so good.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Very
Because
nice.
she has to trust us, right? Because we
Of
have to
course.
show her that we can do our part, because ultimately she is in charge of the studies. She is the doctor in charge, and it is her license. So the last thing we would ever want to do is to affect her in a negative way. But we have to do our part. So we're very upfront about, this is what we do, this is your responsibility, but this is our responsibility too. And my responsibility as a site owner is that I'm going to make sure that the staff that's here is doing this, this, and this, and this. So there has to be a trust on both sides. So, we want her to work with us because that's how we get our studies, but she also has to know that when she walks out the door, we're doing our job, and that she can trust us to make sure that we're doing our job. And I think that that's where a lot of the fear comes, where you're naive in the industry, but how do you know who these people are?
Yeah.
How can you trust us? I mean, you're expecting a lot from the doctors to say, here, trust us, we're going to do this. But she doesn't know who we were. So that's why we were very upfront. This is what we do. And Dr. Gutierrez, you can be as involved as you want to be or not. And she's very involved. I mean, we're looking at charts. There's a lot of oversight from her part. And then we also have another doctor who he's like, I'm good. He knows our nurse, but he knows the nurse is always going to take care of him. So he's good. He's like, I don't need to look at that. So I give the opportunity you could be as involved as you want to. You could sit here, you could look at every chart. You could be here a day and night if you want to, or you don't have to. So these are the options that we give her so that she feels comfortable coming to our site and working with us.
Wonderful. Nice team.
Okay.
Congratulations.
I have a question. If you compare, hello, my name is Monica Cuitiban. For being here, Topaz. Okay, so my question is, if you compare what the idea that you have, how research was, and the reality, what's the difference?
Completely different. So the experience that I have, of course, is when we do our training as pediatrics, we have to publish, under one of the attendings. So, but I remember struggling, finding P's that were significant, or struggling to writing a method. That's what I thought clinical research was, okay? That I have to do that part, and I actually completely different. I didn't know that I was going to be hands-on, touching children, seeing children, interacting with them. I thought it was completely different, all clerical, all administrative in the back. And that's another, of course, barrier for me that I didn't know. I had absolutely no idea.
I'm glad to hear that. And then my next question is, and when you learn about the reality and then also the responsibilities that you had as a principal investigator, did that scare you?
Not at all. Especially when I know that if I learn my protocol, I expect the outcomes, and I am committed to the study and to the patients, and to make sure that they do well and they understand what's going on. And I was more afraid actually of the administrative, like I said, and clerical part than the PI actually. Yeah, because I thought, okay, as long as I do my research and I know what I'm going to be treating these patients, or what I'm going to be giving to them, or what can I expect, then it's not that hard. No, definitely not that hard.
Okay, and if you were going to speak with some, like, let's say another peer, another doctor about clinical trials, what would you tell them?
Amazing. To be on the verge of all these novel things that are coming, to know what's out there being investigated that you don't know. As a doctor, you are just treating or using based on experience, but using evidence or what you're doing, and actually know that you can talk to the patients, and this is a novel treatment. This is top of the line. What's coming? What's going to be the future? It's very exciting. I don't see going back, and not including clinical research in my future, because it's absolutely very, very, very good.
So would you say that you feel like, from PI perspective, but also your own personal perspective, would you say that, coming from a clinical background and then now doing clinical research, do you feel that you have more, you're making more of a difference in the clinical aspect?
Exactly, and the excitement, and that you can see from the beginning to the end how they respond, how grateful they are, how this that wasn't supposed to be used for is working. All this stuff, the fulfillment, the excitement is great. I love being a pediatrician. I would never stop being a pediatrician. I would love to have all day just for one patient that I can sit with them, talk with them, eat with them, and spend the day with them. But definitely in the balance that I need for my life at home and my career, and the excitement that I get from here, I would say that for now, yes, this is it.
Wonderful.
You had some
And
questions.
I have a question. This is Judy. So the patients that you do work with in the clinical trials, are they usually from advertisements or within where you work? Some of your patients prior, because I know you don't have a clinic yet, or is it a combination of both? Where do you get your patients for the children's studies?
So that's where this great stuff come in, because most of them are for advertising, fairs, radio, all these kinds of talk about clinical research, and let them know that we're here, that we're doing this, and that I am here, that I'm overseeing everything. But that's the other step that we want to take. We want to have these patients, but we want to continue following them, and that they stay with us, since they gain that trust to come to the clinical research. They also stay for their basic care as well. So that's where we're going to take the next step, to see if we can also have the pediatric clinic here, and also continue to doing the research with the patients too.
Yeah.
And one extra thing that I know that Dr. Gutierrez does, that I know that other doctors have not done. I mean, we've gotten to the point where some people say, I'm not sure if I want to participate. And Dr. Gutierrez will literally, she's driving down the road, she's like, put the mom on the phone with me. She'll sit there and she'll talk to them about it, both in English and Spanish, and and just explain what's going to be happening, and the fact that I will be caring for your child, I will be caring for you, and any information. So she's, I think, taking that extra step that makes a difference. Makes a difference, where she's literally, if we want to talk to them, we can say, hey, you want to talk to the doctor, and she's made herself available for us. So I think that's made a difference in bringing in patients, and also in retaining our patients.
Amazing.
Very important.
Congratulations, yes.
So when you all record that video encouraging people or explaining why people should participate in clinical research in Spanish, Dr. Gutierrez is going to make a cameo.
We hope so.
I'm just saying a physician's input would definitely help the video.
Yes, we've definitely talked about it, and that's why we're kind of sitting in this setting too, because we want everybody to see that we're comfortable with each other. It's not like we're not being all official either. And that's what you're going to get also when you're here with your child. When you come to our site, not just for our children's studies, but any of our studies, and Dan and I, we talked about this before, is that we want our patients to feel comfortable coming to our site. And so
Yeah.
you're going to get this friendliness, and you get this. And I think that one of the questions that we have written down was, I don't know if it's because we're Hispanics, we are a little bit more touchy, we're a little bit more feeling, we're a real affectionate person. And so then that's what one of the things that we wanted to ask was, you feel because that's part of our culture, that's maybe something that's helping us to retain our patients, because that's one of the things we do. We might not be 100 person enroller every study. The ones that we enroll, we get them there to the very end. So they come in and we retain all of our patients. So we're starting to get known for, our retention. So I know that we take extra steps when our patients are here. You feel that that's something that we do?
Definitely. I think that's very important. If they understand, and like I said, they trust you, if you explain the good, but also explain the bad, and what can you expect, and be realistic, of course, and especially with the vulnerable or the minorities like children, elderly, Hispanics, they come with certain fears of the unknown, of course. But if they understand the language, if you go to their level and you explain to them and they gain your trust, definitely that's going to make a difference. So yes, I think so, especially since Latinos, we always hug and kiss. How are you? You're doing well. How's your mom? How's everything?
Always.
I come from the culture of ay bendito, so everything is ay bendito. We always put in the other people's shoes. So and that's definitely important, and that's definitely what they're looking for, that kind of involvement.
So we have two questions from the public. So one is Perla Alba Nunez. She's asking, how many PIs does Topaz have, and are they all bilingual?
Yes, all of our PIs are bilingual. We have, we're looking at like 5, 4. We might bring in one more.
We're hoping to bring
We're
one
hoping
more.
to bring one
So
more.
they're all
So we're
bilingual.
all bilingual. We have 5 different doctors, different practices. They we have emergency room, family medicine, hopefully OBGYN, GYN, psych, psychiatry,
family
right?
practice.
Family practice. So we're, I believe 2 of them are coming in with experience, clinical research experience. The other ones don't have that experience. But I think also what we do is when I submit my naive research PIs, I attach my CV to it. So I think that was one of the important things. But what I also do is if Dr. Gutierrez doesn't have experience in a certain part of research, then what I do is I add her on as a sub-investigator for this coming up study. So now that's given her the experience. She's exposed to the protocol, she's exposed to the patients, she can come and see patients as needed, or just the fact that she's exposed to that and we can add it onto her CV. Now that gives her experience, and then the next opportunity, because I believe when we brought in the diabetes study, the very first study, you came in as a sub-investigator. She came in as a sub-investigator, and it was also because she wanted to make sure that this was something she wanted to do. And so she came in as a sub-I. Once that study was over, it was like, Dr. Gutierrez, do you want to submit you as a PI? And she was like, well, let's do it. So we did. We threw her name out there. And so, I mean, that's kind of, I forgot what the question was. But anyway,
Yes, they are bilingual.
Yes, but all of our PIs are bilingual. We do have a diverse staff, and I think that that's what we talked about. We have a diverse staff. We have we're trying to bring in Creole population. We're trying to bring the Hispanic population here. We're trying to bring English speaking population. So we do have a diverse staff. But what we wanted to do was to make things different, was to be a bilingual staff.
Yeah.
I mean, a bilingual site, because of the lack of research sites that had no one. I mean, the studies, maybe you had staff working there that spoke Spanish. All of the studies were only in English.
Right.
So you didn't have any Spanish informed consent forms. And that's something that we immediately told the sponsor, you have to provide us with Spanish. One of them provided us also with Creole. So we have to have Spanish consent. We've had some studies that have come back to us and say, well, we're going to put you on hold. And I know it's because they don't want to give us a Spanish consent. And we're okay with that, because we need to bring everything that comes here has to be both in English and in Spanish.
Keeping
That's the
standards
key.
high. Yep.
That's the key.
Yeah, and actually, I do have a question on that. Do you feel that that's still continues to be a big barrier right now, 2021, compared to when you started? Is it do you see that it's changed? Because I know you said you don't take on the study pretty much if you don't have the Spanish, but there are studies that just won't provide it.
Exactly. I think we just got put on hold for one of them because I think they don't want to provide us a Spanish, and we're like, that's fine, we'll move on. And then that same day we got put on hold, we got another study yesterday evening. So I think there has been a change even within this past year. I think within this past year, 2020, I think we are making a difference somehow in the industry, because we're seeing where, you know, there wasn't much of a push for Spanish. We all know they need a diverse population in clinical research.
Yeah.
We know that, the sponsors know that they need that data. And I think we are making waves somehow, because I see there's a different attitude between 2019 and 2021. So I think the people that are coming up to us now, they're like, oh, no problem.
Yeah,
You know, and it's mostly positive.
English and
But one came back to us, and we worked with them in the past, and it was a problem trying to get that Spanish consent from them. But everything else, I think that we're getting, it's like, no problem.
Yeah.
And we immediately say, we have the population that you need. So we let them know, we know that you guys need the Hispanic population. We know you need the minority data. We know you need that. They're not saying it because they probably just can't say straight up, we need minorities in clinical research. So we don't need for them to say it. We immediately say, we know that you need minorities in clinical research, and we have that group. And that's what we're trying to reach out. So, you know, it's, you guys know me a bit. I'm pretty honest about how I speak and how I say things. And I'm the same way with the sponsors. I mean, I don't, you know, and if it comes for us, and if it's our study, it's going to be our study. And if they don't want to work with us, that's fine too. You know, it's probably a blessing for somebody else and not for us. So
yeah.
That's how
And just to clarify, because I know you mentioned that, so pretty much if you don't have the Spanish consent, you are not going to be able to recruit for that study in your community, because that's how many Spanish speakers you have, correct? In a lot of conditions you work on, right?
We have we have a large English-speaking population that's participating. It's a mix. I think it's part of Florida. There's a mix of everybody. So, I mean, because we've had some studies that, we brought in the Spanish consent, we didn't get a single Spanish speaker. Or if we did get the Hispanics, they all spoke English. So we just consented them in English. They wanted to be consented. So we had, but we want the option. We're literally right now in a part of Florida where Orlando had the largest amount of traffic, literally where our office is now, it's double the amount of traffic, meaning there's a huge Hispanic population. There's such a big growth in our area, which has been great for us, because I think we've gotten to the point where we're in a great location now. Which was what I looked at when I first opened the site, and we're in. We can now sit there and say, we need this, we want this. We're going to work with you. We're not going to work with you. And bottom line is, there's more than enough for everybody. And if it's not meant for us, it's not meant for us, and we don't worry. We just move on. But we do want to have the options that if there is a Spanish speaker walking in that door, that they can participate in any of our studies.
I agree. We have to, we have to push and push and push, because the industry truly needs the diversity, but they don't really making the effort. And if we don't push, then they won't do it. So that's part of our responsibility as being a bilingual community.
Yeah. And also, just because we have diverse communities doesn't mean they all speak English. And I think that's the one thing that a lot of CROs and sponsors don't understand. Just because we have a large, like in my community, Hispanic patient population, depending the condition, like Alzheimer's studies, I can't take on an Alzheimer's study in English. It has to be Spanish or I have to decline that. But just, they're depending what the diversity is in your community, that means there's different people that speak different languages, not just English. And I think that's the one thing that the sponsors are not getting still.
Even if the population can speak English, you're going to have situations where they feel more comfortable understanding in Spanish, and you need to, meet them at their level of like where they feel comfortable, because this is our health. So regardless, they need to meet in the middle, right? And
we've had patients like that come in that they're like, no, yo quiero todo en español, everything in Spanish. Yes. And I'm like, Dr. Gutierrez, sit down and talk to them. So she'll talk to them in Spanish. And then, Christy comes in who speaks English, and she'll start saying things. They're like, yes, no, yes. We're like, wait a minute, you understand what we're saying? Yeah, but I'm more comfortable in Spanish and everything else. So they have those options. We're at least providing those comfort level to make those patients feel comfortable. So it's just great having her here. I think we had a couple of other questions that we were going to ask her.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you first before we forget. Okay, retention. Marjorie and Carla, I talked to you guys for like an hour last week or 2 weeks ago. When was that? Maybe a month ago. Who knows anymore?
Thank you, Dan.
Retention. Okay, you guys are known for retention, especially on a couple of studies. And I think sponsors find that more important than recruitment because they need the data. I mean, I know now that I'm looking at biotechs to invest as a amateur investor, I see FDA saying, hey, we're not going to accept this data, not enough patients completed. So it's very important to the sponsors to have patients complete, and you guys are winning awards for this. How are you doing?
Well, I was going to say, it's nice because we actually just, like we were saying, we had a conversation yesterday where Christy actually got a call from a project manager who for a study that they shut down on us, and it wasn't we didn't enroll like great, but what we did enroll, we kept the patients for it, and that was their thing. They were like, well, we have another one coming up, and they want to know what our barriers were, like what it was. Did it have a lot to do with the COVID and all that stuff? And we're like, yeah, of course, because we can't go to the fairs. And we Christy explained, we do a lot of outreach, literally through fairs and events and things like that. That's how we get our people. And then they said, what was nice is that they said, we really appreciate you actually telling us what's going on. And on top of it, we would rather have a site that doesn't sit there and tell us they can recruit 100 patients and then maybe they screen or whatever 100 patients and all of them drop out. We'd rather have a site that is moderate or can do a little bit at a time, but can keep those patients the whole way. We actually just heard this from a sponsor yesterday, and they want to use us for their next study. And we were just like, oh, it's amazing to even hear it because I always think I'm like, retention is the most important part. The studies, it doesn't even get, nothing even goes past like a certain level unless they have the good data. They have everything they need. If everybody's dropping out, the site got 100 patients in and they can't keep them. It doesn't make a difference. In fact, they lost money because they gave they paid for all this stuff that they're not going to get any good data out of.
And I think Dr. Gutierrez definitely plays a part in that.
Yes.
Because when you're in the room with the patients.
Exactly. For me, I always get into their shoes. Okay, if for me it was all new, very different. I can't imagine them trusting a loved one, a child, to me in something that is experimental, of course. But even if it's Hispanics, I speak Spanish with them. I explain everything. Or if they're not Hispanics, it's the same. You explain to them everything, what the study is about, what's the good that's going to come out of it. But the thing is that you have to make them know and aware that you're going to be there all the step of the way. And in fact, they're going to get a more direct and more care that they will get in a clinical setting, because we have these follow-ups and we have the phone number and they can call us and I'm going to be there. If this happens, this is what we're going to do. So we have a plan, and we make them gain, of course, their trust, because of course they're trusting us with their health, of course, and with their loved ones as well. So for me, that's very important, just to make sure that they understand everything. I repeat multiple times. I make sure that they are completely informed on all the process, and that I'm going to be there, all the step of the way. So that definitely makes a difference.
And you do make a comment. I have noticed that what she does is to say, okay, for your next visit, and the importance of the next visit.
Yes.
So I think that's something that you do, like while they're leaving and you're saying your goodbyes, you're like, okay, so for the next visit, we're going to do this. Don't forget, Mom, it's really important for you to come back. We need for you to come back, the importance. So she's giving them the praise, and also the praise that they are participating in clinical research. And I have noticed that you do it and Christy do it, and you thank them for being here. And then you also warn them of how important it is for them to come back for their next visit.
Yes.
So I think that's something that I do notice. That's helping with retention, because they feel they're excited about participating in something, and that you're giving them the importance of, look, it's really important that you're here. and especially if it's coming from the PI.
And I think it's important
Yeah.
to share that with the, like, if you're a site, like site owners or anything like that, to make sure that your PI, like if you're bringing on a PI, that they know that that's important. Like, yeah, like it's important we get patients into this study, but it's really important that we retain them, because they're not going to keep picking us, or they're not going to give us another study if we can't retain the patients. And then I think if your PI knows that, your PI is like, okay, well, I got to do everything. Dr. Gutierrez does everything she can to talk to them nonstop about the importance, like we're saying, so that it's like that way they're retained in the study. And so it's just not, it's not just like screening, you know, and bringing in a bunch of people in the beginning and then they all drop, and, you know.
And every
it's a
PI
big
that
deal
we
to
work
retain.
with has that personality.
Yeah.
That's been important to us as a site. First of all, we all have to be compatible. We all have to work together. We have to respect each other, and we expect that respect among each other. But then we also have to be aware that what we're doing is important. So it's not okay to have someone that comes in and says, I don't care what's going on. Where do I need to sign and go on? That's not what we want to do here, because we're trying to make a difference, and we're trying to break ground here as Hispanic owners, we're business owners. So it's important that we all are on the same page. And that's something that we talk about from the beginning. I think that that's one of the things also that made you feel comfortable, was because of the fact that I was straightforward. This is what we expect. This is going to be your responsibility. This is what you do. And trust me, we've talked to lots of doctors that say, yes, we want to do this. Yes, I want to work with you. And I send them, and I mentioned at the GCP training, I never hear back from them. So if I have to keep asking you, the very first thing that I ever asked you was to do a GCP training, and I have to say, did you get it done? Did you get it done? What is that going to happen in the future when the PI needs to show oversight? So we have that understanding. And I think we're a good group because we have this understanding with each other, and we are excited about what we're doing. And we're excited that she's excited. So yeah, and that we're going to do other things.
I'm getting questions texted to me now. Maybe Zoom's getting too crowded, or maybe you found a hack. But they want to ask Dr. Gutierrez, does she find it easier to enroll Hispanic patients, or not easier?
Yeah. To tell you the truth, I feel it's both ways. We've been successful with both groups. I am there, of course. Need me to go all the way in Spanish or do that, but I haven't felt a difference for me being the principal investigator, getting more Spanish speakers than non-Spanish speaking. So I guess it's like I said, it's the same care for both of them. If make them involved, make them participate in the study as well. But it's actually the same for both, as long as you keep them in the same page, make sure they understand that you're going to be there, and that
Okay, we have another question. Any industry association among diverse PIs that you actively collaborate with?
Any PIs that you actively collaborate with?
No, actually I don't. And I guess that was one of the questions. If one of my colleagues, or I know somebody from my either pediatrics or other in the medicine field that are doing clinical research, and no, I do not know anybody. I am the first one. They ask me every time a lot of questions, and some of them ones, of course, they're intrigued, but no, I do not know anybody.
Especially
Okay, so-
pediatrician.
Especially pediatricians,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So she's asking if you collaborate with any other association that has diverse PIs other than network groups besides the Latinos in Clinical Research.
Any other groups you part of, Doctor?
No one.
No.
It's just us.
No,
Yes.
just not the medical association. No.
We've had a challenge getting consents in Spanish too. What do you think is the cause of that? Do you think it's translation? And why don't some of you Spanish speakers kind of put together an IRB support service that might, that's mixed of not just physicians and clinical researchers, but outsiders as well, to translate for them, if that's what you think the limitation is? I've seen that too.
Yeah, that's
what
not
do you
the
think the issue is?
Yeah.
It's a sponsor. They don't want to pay for it. It's a financial issue.
It's a cost, because they have to pay the IRB for every document that they submit. So it is a cost. They have to have a certified translating company, which is an additional cost. So it's all related to a cost. And I think that Latinos in Clinical Research did an interview with someone who is translating. And I think that was in one of your other videos. See, I always promote their videos. And where they are working, translating. But I think we asked somebody recently, one of the sponsors, and they said, well, if you can get someone to translate it and submit it to the IRB, we'll pay for it. So maybe it is getting to the point where we are going to find our own translating company, and we can submit to them. You know, that probably is going to be a process because of confidentiality or something like that. But bottom line is that it costs money to submit any kind of paperwork. So if you're having to translate, that's a cost. Having to submit to IRB, that's a cost. Having to have everything approved. And then
I wouldn't mind picking up the translation cost in most cases. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
But here's the thing too, Leroy. We got a study where the documents were translated. They were by a certified translated company. I sat there and I sat page by page and opened up my English one compared to my Spanish one, and it was completely different. There were two different consent forms. I submitted it back to the sponsor, and they said, "Oh, we've been using this for the last 2 years." I said, "I don't know what you've been using, but we are not accepting this form. This is not properly translated." I said the money didn't even match, and the words didn't even match. I mean, it was completely different consent form. But the translating company gave them a certificate. So, you know, again, Latinos in Clinical Research, if we have Latinos working with the sponsors, because no one at the sponsor level spoke Spanish. So they thought that what they had translated was perfect. They submitted it to these sites in other parts of the US that were literally using it. And I guess they just didn't want to bother with it. I don't understand why you would use that. But when it came to us, and we joined the study 3 years after they had already been going on for 3 years, and they gave me that, I was like, no. So what they did, they took over 6 months to get it retranslated for us. They kept putting off our SIV. It was almost like we were being, they asked me to correct it. And I said, you're not paying me for that. But it was like they were almost trying to punish us. I felt like we were being punished because they would not start the SIV until that Spanish document got translated.
We asked to do it in English. Well, let's do it in English.
We said we can do it in English. We can start recruiting. And they would not do it. They were like, no, we want all your documents. Are you sure you want the Spanish done? And we were like, yes. And so it took them 6 months. It gave us less than 6 months to enroll. We did great. We brought in 10 patients that they had, some sites that had been in the study for 3 years and could go get 1 or 2 patients. We told them, you guys took 6 months to give us our translation. So, I mean, it's almost like a fight. I'm seeing the attitudes changing a little. Yeah, there is a change. But this was back in 2018 when this happened.
Yeah.
We got oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, getting the translations is not an issue. A lot of these IRBs have that in place. They can translate. It's not the issue. It's the cost, as Marjorie mentioned. If the sponsor is not going to give the okay to the IRB to translate, they're not going to translate it. We can, as a site, say we're going to translate it. I have a certified translator. I can get anything translated. But if the sponsor says, no, you can't, you're not going to be able to use it, and they're not going to approve it, then it's pointless. And that still occurs on studies that we're on to this day at our site. So
it might be my naiveness, but it just seems like such a small expense in the grand scheme of what a clinical trial costs. I can't believe that would be a barrier of any sort.
Exactly. You just said exactly what we all think.
We got a hand raised. We got a hand raised by Nick. Nick, thank you for being patient.
Thank you, man. Hi, Carla. Hi. How are you guys, Marjorie? How are you doing?
Good. Thank you.
You brought up the Spanish. As far as my side is concerned, my coordinators speak and write fluent Spanish and speak fluent English at the same time, just like you guys. And you brought up a point as far as cost is concerned. As you well know, when you're doing the budgets and stuff, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. When you're doing the budget negotiation, I think they want you to explain stuff or give an explanation for anything that you want. That's above and beyond what they want to give. So I think one of the explanations could be, and I haven't tried it, I just learned that by you. And yes, I have having problems with companies giving translations to me, even though I'm not pushing for translation, but I'm pushing for it in the sense that, hey, it's a mixed population. The more versions I have, the better off I am. And if somebody comes in and they can speak Spanish, they should be able to understand what's written, I think.
Yes.
But in the what I was getting at is that if you can justify saying, listen, hey, I'm only one little site, one site out of 200 sites, and, could you allow me to do that for this much money? Or could you just do it for our site? It's not going to cost you that much. So I think giving that explanation might push them over in the sense like, well, they've got a point, and it's always about, the number of patients you get. And that's another thing I can understand when you brought in 10 patients versus other people, why they did give you a little bit of leverage. That sounds, that doesn't sound common. Usually when you bring in more patients for a study, you tend to get a little bit more leverage, especially if you stand out. So why do you think that you didn't get any leverage from them? I don't understand.
That was previous to us bringing in the patients.
Yeah.
So that's what we said. We did well with their study, but they took so long. So we were like, imagine if you had put us off for 6 months just because you didn't want us to, you just wanted us to change our mind. And so you took the 6-month process to just get us the Spanish consent. And then we were like, we brought in so many patients for you in the short amount of time while you had other sites that didn't do it as well. If you had just sped this up and not try to punish us for asking for it in Spanish or asking you to correct what was wrong on your Spanish paperwork, we could have brought in more patients. So they really slowed us down. That's what we were really frustrated with, because we're like, we really could have done more with more time.
But it's an experience that we got. We're bringing it up to sponsors now. So at that moment, it does give us leverage for other studies where we're like, look, we had this incident happen. You guys going to go ahead and approve everything at the same time? We want to get it all done at the same time. We have people sitting here wait. I mean, so it gives us the opportunity. It was an experience that we had to have so that we could have that leverage. But I think that it was something that helped us in the future, but not for that study. Not with that.
So I'm gonna use what you said in the sense that the next time I'm negotiating for these things and marketing supplies or whatever, I'm gonna make sure that I insist that we get. And they've gotten stingy. I don't know if you've noticed or not over the last year. I mean, for one study, I just got literally, I don't know, maybe 100 little pieces. I mean, it's like that's not enough. And so I think they thought, well, if nobody's gonna go outside and actually give these flyers out, why order too many? So I'm just making it up. I don't know why they've gotten stingy, but I think what you said about getting Spanish, consent forms and everything else, I think is extremely important because I'm in Florida. I mean, I'm around the corner from you guys, so.
Okay. We need
My hands down.
we need
You're right. They have gotten stingy with stuff. They've gotten stingy with stuff to pass out, information to pass out. It's pulling teeth to get flyers, things like that. And you're like, this stuff works. If you want to use this, and if you want to use a standalone research site, you need it. We use it. We pass that stuff out. We go places. We do stuff with that. So I don't know why they're being stingy about it. We know they've got the money.
Yeah. And then it also depends on the therapeutic areas you're working on, because aside from the consent, are they going to have to translate the patient-reported outcomes? Are they using an electronic diary? Is that going to have to be provided in other languages? So then it's even more costs that they're going to incur. And they don't want to go through that whole process.
It's all about. And I think the bigger pharmas are the ones that have like obviously the different translations and stuff, because they're international, so they'll have these translations. They have the e-diaries, but we work with a lot of little pharmas too, and then that's what we push. We're like, hey, you want to be like the big pharmas? You need to do Spanish too. So that's important.
The questions for Dr. Gutierrez that we had a list of questions.
No, I don't know. It's all out of
order.
And everyone asked a lot of the same questions. I guess one of our other questions too is I wanted to ask the doctor, because we talked about it the other day, and I didn't know if you thought it made a difference, because I know someone asked too, like, are you seeing a difference enrolling patients that speak Spanish speakers by being Hispanic? And I was going to say, do you think it makes a difference for the to have like the Hispanic patients that are that one too. Oh, okay. Do you think it makes a difference enrolling patients that are not Hispanic when you are Hispanic?
I don't think it is a difference. If I were in Puerto Rico, where I'm born, of course it will make a difference because we speak Spanish there all the time, right? But here in Florida, I would say it's more or less 50-50 or a little bit more of the non-Spanish speaker. So I don't think it's there's a lot of difference enrolling for one or the other.
Okay. And what about the staff? Do you think it makes a difference having a diverse staff also working with you and working with the patients?
Yes, of course. So when I go in the room, everybody knows I'm Hispanic, Latino, even for the way I look or my accent or some of the words that I struggle with. But yes, definitely it makes a difference if they know that Christy is right there by my side, and she can also help me, make sure that we are understanding each other. And of course, if they speak Spanish, that I can definitely communicate better with them and I can explain them everything to the tip, right? But it makes definitely a difference. Somebody else that they could identify with and make sure that if they need something, someone that acknowledge their questions, their concerns, and maybe they don't want to exactly speak with me, they can find somebody else in the staff definitely that they could identify with. That's super important, yes.
Lee brings up a good point. I would like to see the data on enrollment, speed, and numbers on trials that offer Spanish consent and those that don't. I think
That'd
the
be
data
interesting.
would support the cost. I think somebody like Metadata or Viva, who we're talking to, I think we'll bring that up. Like
Yeah.
they can study this and see. Man, if it doesn't, then it doesn't. But I have a feeling it will make an impact on speed and numbers. It's just math, I think.
I think one of the things that we also brought up was that we are talking to people. It's, because we, as a culture, we still have that fear, right? I don't want to be a guinea pig thing, which we're so tired of hearing. I don't know what happened with guinea pigs. They don't even use guinea pigs. They use rats and rabbits. I mean, but why the poor guinea pig, right? So anyway, we still hear it. And it's, one of the things that we're bringing to the Hispanic community, it's like, well, how much medication are you getting prescribed how many Hispanics do you think participated in the studies with the medication that you're taking? What's the data there? I guarantee we didn't have many Hispanics participating for that blood pressure medicine that you're taking or that Tylenol that you love to take. I mean, what's the data there, right? So we as Hispanics that eat different, that have a different way of just DNA, everything is just different. We need to have that data included in future medications. So, I mean, that's something that we kind of bring in, and also to let them know, it's important to be a part of clinical research. And I think someone was asking, I think you guys posted on your Instagram, it was like, do you see a difference in clinical research? Gosh, I forgot where I was going. Do you see like the difference in clinical research?
That's good, Mama.
In clinical research.
Mhm.
So, okay, we have like
It works.
going on. Do you see a difference in Hispanics wanting to participate in clinical research? And we know that if we let Hispanics know that they're being a part of something in the future, you're being part of what's important. And hopefully the medications that you're taking as a Hispanic person that eats totally different than someone who is from another part of the world, or, we have different ways of eating and how medication affects us. We need to be a part of that, and we need to be a part of that data in future medications. And I think some people, that's opening ground. And the fact that we had COVID, and the fact that everybody's participating in the biggest clinical research study right now, that has opened people's eyes to participating in clinical research, or asking questions at least, especially in the Hispanic community. I think. I mean, we still have those barriers where people are coming back and they're saying guinea pigs. And I think I mentioned to them, we had an association close to us that literally was talking horrible things about us, saying that we're going to experiment on their kids, that we're going to experiment, we're going to do all these things to them. And, I had to call them and shut it down and let them know that that is unacceptable because you're misinformed. So, I mean, as much as they were saying all this misinformation, I even told them, it sounds like you have a lack of education in clinical research. I'm willing to go out there and talk to you about clinical research.
Mhm.
This is going to stop you from giving out this misinformation, especially to the Hispanic culture. You know how we all are. We talk and talk and talk and we pass it on. We won't call you straight up and ask you, but we'll see what, abuela said or what the tia said or whatever said instead of, so it's very important to stop that misinformation out there too. So it's important that we become leaders in that that we are giving the correct information about clinical research. Let me get off my soapbox, guys.
Yeah.
Any questions? Any more questions for Dr. Gutierrez?
Who's got questions? Let us know.
Hey,
And
you
then we
guys
can-
always want a PI on here. This is the chance.
My question is, I want your ad that you found her. I want the word for word so I can post it in Yuma, Arizona when I move.
And and sometimes we post these ads, and I'm like, in my head, I'm always expecting like a huge response too. So when we do get them, though, it's like, yay! And we call them and stuff. But our ads are always really, like the doctor said, it's really like we're willing to take the time to train and go over it with the doctor, because you can find a good doctor it's gonna make a big difference in your site. So, and I think a lot of the sites don't, a lot of sites don't want that. They want a doctor with the experience already, with the, with all the stuff, and they're coming with everything already ready for you. And,
Which is great.
And which, if you can get it, that's great. But if you can't, then you gotta, if you want to find a good one, that you might be able to train properly and everything too, and the way you want it ran at the site. I literally posted like, no experience needed. Come as you are.
Yeah, you need it. I
Chris.
think you need some kind of experience. I think you need some kind of experience. In
No
my opinion.
experience in clinical research.
As a clinician,
Yeah.
yes. As a doctor,
Obviously,
yes.
as a doctor, yes.
But as far as clinical research, we're willing to train and go over everything in clinical research as much as the doctor would like to know.
And I think also what we've also noted, because we want to give people the opportunity to get into clinical research, right? Because you still hear that a lot. It's so hard to get into clinical research. It's so hard to get into clinical research. And we're like, we want you to get into clinical research. Come and visit us. So, we try to have our doors open that if you really are interested, but again, if you're really interested, which means you have to, you bring value to the site. We're willing to be here, and we're willing to help you out, and we're willing to at least set you in the right direction. But you have to put your part. It's important that we also open the doors to people who have an interest in clinical research. And I think the biggest thing is opportunities are there for all of us. I know that sometimes in our industry we get like, oh, I don't want those people to get that study, or they're too close to my office or anything like that. And the opportunities are out there. This is a growing industry. It's been growing for 20, 30 years, but we still feel like we're still growing. And we still have way more to go, and especially to get the information out to people. That, like Dr. Gutierrez said, there's no pediatricians that she knows, and she knows a lot of people in the area, and no one is involved in clinical research. So it's like, what do we need to do to get that information out there to get more people to participate?
Yeah, and the other misinformation is about the time. They feel if I don't have time to do this, how I'm going to have time to also include the clinical research, because if they're like me, they're thinking I'm going to have to do everything. I have to learn new things. So they're not going to be able to get involved because probably they have the fear of I can't get any more work. So I can't get any more work that I already have in my hands, So that's another misinformation too.
Yeah. And and also going back to the ads, Carla also now, when we do advertise now, at the beginning, it was like, please come as you want. But when she does her ads, she's very precise on what exactly we're looking for. So if you are not meeting that, don't answer us, because we had we were looking for nurse practitioners, and that was another thing. We have two great nurse practitioners that are working with us who were looking for that opportunity to get into clinical research. But I remember 2 years ago, no one would even answer our ads, and I don't know if we kept getting answers from all over different people, and we were like, no, we don't need that. We need a nurse practitioner. Then her last advertisement that she put out, it was like, I need this. I need you to do this. This is, it was so precise. And we had about 70 people respond. And the ones that we picked out are amazing. And, and everyone met exactly the criteria that we were looking for. And also that interest to want to be in clinical research. And everybody, they're so excited to be a part of everything that we're doing here.
I think it's like, I think as a business and a site too, like it's making a difference right now. Because there's been so many people that have been laid off and all that stuff, or just businesses being closed and stuff. I know we've talked about this before, that it's like they're looking, now is the time to, if you are looking for PIs and stuff, to look, because they're looking for an opportunity to make some money, because they lost a lot of money now for this past year. So now is the time to kind of maybe take advantage of looking for PIs and stuff.
Get the word out there and open the doors and give them the opportunity. or just to even have the conversation about, you said about the time misconceptions, the fact that they think that they're going to need to be here 30 hours a week. And that's not what we do at all. Doctors come as needed. So that's how we're able to have different doctors, is because of the fact is that everybody has a job. Everybody has a different job. Everybody's doing different things in their lives. And as your patients are coming in, as you're needed, that's when you come to our site. When I need you to do oversight, when you need to review documents, I mean, that's when they're here. So it frees them up to do so many of the other things that they want to do as doctors.
I think Nick had a question. If anyone else has a question, we can do like one more question, then I'll stop recording and we can do like a mixer. I'm in a Clubhouse mode, and that's what we do on Friday nights on a Clubhouse.
As always done.
Yeah, if y'all
Always.
aren't on it, y'all need to go. It's really awesome.
We're Android guys. We're Android here.
Eventually.
Too.
He always
We
says
have to
somewhere.
test
He
it.
always says somewhere.
That's right. But Nick, did you have a question?
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Nick, you're in mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't a question. It was a comment from a PI that I think it's important, or it's easier for the doctor to go out there and talk to other doctors to get their attention. I found that even as a doctor now after COVID, you have to be a dragon to cross their clinical moat, so to speak, their castle. So I've done all kinds of tricks. For example, I'll just call the hospital. I'll say it's a doctor to doctor of so-and-so doctor. And it's a private patient. So I'll get in that way. But the thing is, what I'll do is there's three things. Number one, the doctors are concerned about when I go out there and woo them. And I've got a pretty good portion of doctors out there that I've got contracts with for NDAs and for being investigators, sub-investigators. And what the first thing they look at is, am I going to get paid? Number one. The second thing they look at is, I don't want any more liability. So as an investigator, as long as you do the CTAs correctly, they can be indemnified also. But in reality, since they're not really giving the medicine and they're not really doing all that stuff unless they're primary, or if the primary is missing or the principal is missing, they don't have that much liability. I usually use them for procedures or as sub-investigators for the study. And so when you go out there and you woo these doctors, like I said, and you're also right about the fact that their primary care incomes are down by anywhere from 20 to 30% on the average. And there's been a little bit of, turmoil. And yes, I think now is a good time for them to expand their portfolio. So that's something that they are interested in. So, those are the things that they fear is, again, how much work am I going to do? How am I earning this money? And basically they get paid for the referral, for chart review and stuff like that as an investigator, because they do have to go through their database. Like Marjorie, you make them do the GCPs and you make them do this and that. I make them go through their database. So it's a lot of people send their monitors to go through databases, but I make them go through it. So, I think I think they deserve to get paid in that sense. So so basically my comment was that the doctors, when you try to woo them, the first, most of them are actually working. They don't want to do anything else because they're used to that. So when they have to step outside of their comfort zone, you have to tell them exactly what they're going to do. Starting off by having them refer a patient and getting paid and not have liability is a good start.
Yep.
And after a certain amount of time, you can just text them and say, hey, I want these patients. I need you to be a sub-I for so-and-so. And you don't have to advertise anymore. So you can expand your patient base that way. And you can reel in gently the doctors if you address those issues, whether it's an advertisement or whether it's person to person. That's my comment.
No, and I think you're right,
Thank
doctor,
you.
because we've experienced that too. That we've had we actually had not that long ago where we had Christy. She was going to a dermatologist or nurse, over and over and over and over on behalf of Dr. Gutierrez. Dr. Gutierrez went in one day. They were like, Dr. Gutierrez, come back here. So it makes a difference. It does make a difference, and you're right with the doctor communicating with the doctor. And so that's what we're lucky to have, a doctor that is willing to do that part. Because in some of them, yeah, they're like, well, you know.
She said, let me just stop by. Hold
Yeah.
on. She literally
Yeah.
walked in and said, hi, I'm Dr. Yes, please come back.
So we're like, we've been trying forever.
Yeah.
So it does, you're right, it does make a difference. And so that does make it a little harder for us when we're trying to do it versus like you being a doctor and going, talking to the
That's
doctor.
kind of
Yes,
that's kind of unfair because I'm not as pretty as she is, so that's a little unfair.
There you go, Dr. Gutierrez. More work. Just when you thought it would be okay, more work.
Another thing that I do is I will aggressively chase their connections.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
if I know a pediatrician, or if I know, for example, who did I do recently? Oh, one of my GIs. She's very active in my participation. I said, hey, do you know a pulmonologist personally? Do you know ophthalmologist personally? Do you know a surgeon personally? Do you know? So I got those names down and I said, hey, I'm calling for so-and-so. Dr. So-and-so referred me to you.
yes, yes.
That's all I have to say. So,
We'd have
trying
make
to,
sure you're
trying,
comfortable.
yeah, getting that first one in, the second one in. And then once they feel comfortable with you, then you say, hey, do you know some other physicians that might want to participate? So that's another thing that I use and it works very well. That works the best, actually.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
we'll stop recording and then we can do the mixer if you guys feel
We-
like it. Just you can unmute